Coming from Cincinnati, this is the Spin Lob.
Welcome, everyone, to the Spin Lob. This is Season 1, Episode 7, and our topic of this evening is Tony freaking Azevedo. So this podcast is all about Ohio water polo and how we fit into the national scene. It's a combination of what's going on in Ohio, the Midwest, and the national level. Last week, we had Savon Pardon from Wittenberg University here in Ohio talking about the division level. We also had National Spotlight, Maggie Steffen. Maggie's a Stanford grad, NCAA champion, FINA champion, and the captain of the U.S. women's water polo team. Tonight we'll be having one main guest, which is Tony Azevedo. He's a five-time Olympian, four-time Cutino Award winner, which is similar to the Heisman. And let's be realistic, he probably could have won the Heisman as well. Two NCAA titles and numerous Pan Ams, and also tidbit of the night. He has almost the exact same birth date as my wife. She was born 4 days earlier than Tony was. So that's the tidbit of the night. Well, we're going to jump over to Nick real quick. He's going to give a nice overview of what's going on in Ohio and some Governor news.
So on Thursday, if you've been following the briefings with Governor Dewine, he announced that the pools will be opening May 26th. Now, initially, it sounds like great news. In fact, my captain, I think,
well, I think we lost Nick there for a little bit. So a couple social distancing things have come out. So a couple rules of the road that less than 10 people in groupings in pools. It's going to certainly impact practices. The announcement also talked about low to non-contact sports, which water polo is not. So that puts coaches in a very difficult position right now to do that. Many school facilities are closed for June. So even if things are open, teams cannot get in summer workouts. USA Water Polo also came out with some guidelines. So no public changing facilities. You must arrive on deck with your suit on, already on. Bags must be spaced 6 feet apart. You must wear a mask when entering on the pool deck. No sharing equipment, which includes the ball. So that's going to be very difficult for teams to be able to pass and run any kind of offense. Separate lanes have been brought up. There must be no passing and shooting will be restricted to one player at a time with no goalie. And so these rules are really putting a bit of a hamper on what we can do in the next couple of weeks. But we're optimistic that as other states start seeing good things going on, maybe it can open up a little bit more, and maybe we can start having organized water polo back in the state of Ohio sooner than later. Because I know a lot of people, have missed a lot of their spring season and, going into their summer season. But I know the fall season, which is a main high school season for us, is going to be hit pretty hard. So let's just turn it over to Tony. So our special guest for this evening. So Tony, first of all, thanks for being here. We really appreciate it. So any introduction to, yourself, any background you want to give to the group other than what I missed?
No, I mean, thank you guys for having me. Dude, it just, look, talking about where we're at right now and what you guys are just talking about, I've been advocating for the city here in LB because LA County's pretty much done the same. They're opening pools, but at every other lane. And what I've been advocating is water polo is your best sport. Swimmers, they need to swim, they need a flip turn, right? They need a full lane. I can fit 5 water polo players totally socially distanced into one lane, right? Mm-hmm. So financially for some of these pools, I'm telling them, like, look, either rent the pool out to me or just open your minds to the fact that water polo, we can totally social distance easily. I mean, 25-yard pool, right? I mean, we could fit a lot more in, but just to be smart, let's just say 5. I mean, all we need is legs and jumping and swimming in place and lunging left and lunging right. And reality is that's probably what we need most anyway, instead of swimming. So yeah, I mean,
we're basically playing in a big puddle of bleach anyways, right? And that's one of the things that is mostly killing it. And I think you retweeted out an article that said that water polo is one of the safer sports during this time too. So that was a good read on that one.
Yeah, and then the equipment, right? That's the big thing. Well, look, at the beginning we don't need the equipment. That's fine, but I mean, look, we're dealing with chlorine here. I was walking here in California. It's unfortunate, right? Like we all just can't stick together. But I walk by a park and they're playing pickup basketball, and there's a group playing pickup basketball and soccer, and no one's stopping that. And if you think that that's safe, then water polo. I mean, the fact that there's chemicals, your eyes are red because there's too many chemicals in most pools, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're fine.
Right. Right. So, Tony, with your experience recently with camps all over the country, we know they're going to take a major hit with these restrictions. Taking a step away from the COVID world and the restricted world, when you look at all the camps, you've been all over the country, you've been in the Northeast, the Southeast, the Midwest, the West Coast. Is there any kind of different kind of water polo play that you're experiencing when you show up to a camp? You notice, they play a little bit different. Is there any kind of major difference in these areas?
Yeah, I mean, one of the main focuses that we've had at 6-8 Sports is we've collected data from everywhere we've went, right? Some of it has not been helpful, but a lot of it has. And just to see where areas weaknesses are, to see just the style of play, and like when we collect the data on the game pad and where the difference of earned ejections, whatnot, fouls, possession is different in Southern California and in the Midwest and in Florida. But and I was talking to my dad about it today. I was like, Dad, so what do you think, like, when you talk about the differences of the country? Because the way I see it, every time I go out to the Midwest, there's way more aggression, right? And to me, that's where I see, and historically, you see a lot more centers and defenders coming out of Chicago, coming out of this area, because there is this aggression that's different from a lot of other parts of the country. And then I'll go to a Florida where these players, I mean, they're so fast, and they're actually pretty decent with the ball, but then they're the exact opposite. There's no aggression, right? There's no sense of pressing and protecting the ball and using your legs compared to right now that we can say is Southern California, which is still lacking in legs. But I definitely see a big difference in everywhere I go. And that's why I love, right, that I can tailor clinics to their weaknesses.
And that's interesting you say that, because I know, coaching out here, anytime we're getting ready for California and playing against those teams out west, we always talk about how they move the game quicker and are more physical. But you see the aggression here, which is interesting that, getting an outside perspective on that. Now, I think in your podcast, you mentioned that the highest jumper still comes out of Cincinnati. Is that correct?
He does, man. That was one of my favorite days when I went out with the Squirrels. And that's why you guys are my club, man. The Squirrels. We did the 6-on-5 game that I love, and that was the first. And just to let you know, not only is that the record for the vertical jump in the world, and we have now almost 9,000. We're like 8 away from 9,000 people who've gone through the challenge. But that was the first time that I participated in a water polo type scrimmage with someone since I retired. Because, dude, the moment I retired, I was like, I'm done. I'm done with referees. I'm done with playing. And that was the first time. Mike convinced me, man. He convinced me. And then, but our team won, so it was good.
There might have been a slight advantage on your team. I'm not 100% positive on that, but.
Well, they gave me Ben, man. There was no advantage. Come on.
So speaking of Ben, other than him getting you coffee on that special day that you did arrive and show up and play with the Squirrels, what are some of the highlights for you coming to Cincinnati and running the camp that you have for the past couple of years?
Well, look, to me, when I retired, I knew I needed to figure out a way to make our sport more modern, right? And figure out a way that we can turn water polo around. But I didn't know water polo. Like I know the sport, I didn't know the world. And so for the years that I was traveling, I needed to travel and figure out and talk to people and figure out what they needed and what the sport needed. And the thing that I remember about you guys and like the Luisa Serra the foundation is that the passion is everywhere. I mean, like going to a practice and talking, hanging with the squirrels, you talking with you, Mike, talking with Ben, sitting there with Luisa, and seeing how much you guys love this sport, just like I love this sport, made me realize we got to figure out a way that anyone, anywhere can become they can become the best that they can be in the sport. That we got to connect everyone together. We got to work together because, growing up here in SoCal and then living in Europe, you think like, oh, maybe they aren't as dedicated, right? Or what's going on over there? And then when traveling and seeing some of the kids with the talent, there's some left-hander. Who's that left-hander that always shows up to the camps up? There's one left-hander. You guys have so much talent. And it's like, we just need to connect the dots. He needs the experience when he's older. He needs the fundamentals when he's younger. We need to make sure that all of us, we're not hiding secrets. We're working together so that we can have an Olympian out of Cincinnati. We can have an Olympian out of Chicago. We need more of this, right? And right now we're just not there. And I think that's my goal. We gotta grow this sport the way we know it should be.
And that kind of leads us into the next topic, which I think does really well, is last week we got a chance to talk with Maggie about some of the 6'8" stuff that you guys are doing and kind of how that all kind of materialized. So we kind of wanted to pick your brain a little more on that. And there are a ton of videos on the app and stuff like that. If you're a first-year player or even a relatively newer player, where do you start? Where would you direct someone to say, as a player, you want to take this. This is where you want to start at, and to go from there.
Well, the first is I want to talk to them. I want them to look up, to watch the intro that we have about the history of water polo and get excited that it's one of the first team sports in the world, and that it started with the leather ball, and that it's and some of the celebrities that play the sport, like God, what's the jungle guy that this is just killing me. That Amazon is just anyway. But the first thing I'm going to
talk about, like the guy who went searching Africa.
No, like Tarzan, the original Tarzan, Johnny Weissmuller. He's a water polo player, right? And like these are little things that you talk about that get people, oh, cool. That's wow. That guy was a stud, and we all know Tarzan. But for me, I'm telling them we have this 1.0, 2.0, and it's really basic. And for a lot of people, they take it for granted. They look at it and they say, oh, I've seen that before. I've done that drill. I get it. But that's not acceptable. Every single person, if you're a coach, every single person on your team needs to be wonderful. And I'm not saying perfect. No one's ever perfect. But they need to understand very well how to do every single drill in 1.0 and 2.0. And that's what I'm going to tell that kid. And I've had tons of kids talk to me over the years, and especially now in COVID. And it's like, should I swim? Should I do Peloton? Should I bike? I go, and a decent amount have pools, and ones who have pools, I ask them, let me see you do this, which is a 1.0 drill of sculling over the hips and blocking. They can't do it correctly. If you can't do that correctly, then stop swimming and lifting, and all of this that is easy. That is just hard work. Swimming, getting bigger, getting faster, getting stronger, that's hard work. The fundamentals are hard, and the older you get, the harder they are to learn. And at the highest, when I was in my 5th Olympics, we would have stations, and I'd be doing those same boring over the hip drills that you should do your entire life. So if I'm telling you, you want to start and be successful in the sport, then you need to learn over the hips. You need to learn legs. You need to learn spider. You need to learn how to pick up a ball correctly, Statue of Liberty, I call it. You need to learn how to snap your wrist. And then if you are a coach, every single person on your team should be able to do that. And if they aren't, then we need to figure something out.
Yeah, I don't know if you've actually counted, but I was counting the other day. It was raining, kind of boring. My kids were on their tablets. There are 26 videos on ball handling alone. 13 are non-polo specific, meaning like you're doing not like your cross-face attack video, so like that. It's just like handling. Like, is you think the fundamentals are that important with ball handling that you're gonna spend that many videos that the kids should watch those ones?
Oh yeah, I've always told coaches, like if I, God forbid, hopefully never happens, but if my dream of changing the sport doesn't succeed and I end up being a coach, I will guarantee that a team that's passing 80% and swimming 20% will succeed over the rest. Because when you're passing, you're learning posture, you're working your legs, your comfortability in the water is so important that it's going to lead to success in the game. Swimming at a young age, for sure. If you're a 10-year-old and you're a great swimmer, you're going to be successful. But you're an 18-year-old and you're a great swimmer, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. So for me, it's comfortability in the water. And it goes back to what I talked about of the difference when I travel is the comfortability, right? When I go to the Midwest, I will go and foul you, right? Compared to I'm going to go after the ball and lunge and keep my hands up and try to keep the no foul and make this guy's life a living hell. When I'm in Florida, I'm going to stay off of you, or again, I'm going to foul you, or I don't want to be fouled. I don't understand how to control the ball. And these are just little things. And to me, it's legs out there. It's the over-aggression. I see a lot more grabbing and fouling in the Midwest when I'm there. And then, look, in general, our sport has a lot of, too much grabbing and holding, but I've seen that as I've traveled around the country.
That's incredible. So let's get into your head a little bit, Tony, about game tactics. So when you were playing, and even maybe you're telling this information on your videos, how do you physically and mentally prepare for a game? Say it's 20 minutes before the game. What is going through your mind to get ready for that game?
So for me, it was always, I started thinking about winning and scoring. And I started failing. I started choking. I started getting too nervous. And I remember the great Monty Niskowski, who to me is the greatest coach ever in our country, pulling me aside and telling me to stop thinking about the conclusion and just focus on the things that I do well. And it was like, one of the reasons, and he told me, he's like, one of the reasons we love you is we have one of the best centers in the history of the game called Chris Humbert, who was recruited to Cal Berkeley for basketball, but ended up choosing water polo. And you're the best set passer we have. That was the first thing he told me. He also said, you earn 4 ejections a game. You know how valuable that is to have someone earn 4 ejections? And it changed my mindset. So every game, I went into every match thinking, not of winning, not of worrying about what the coach or what anyone in the stands thought of me. I wanted to do everything as hard as I could. I had to focus on the things that I could control. And I wanted every single person that finished the game to remember me. And I've always been in big, I came up with a saying at a young age that the only thing worse than losing is not being remembered. And I wanted everyone to remember. I wanted the game to end and every person in the pool who had a moment to guard me or me guard them to think, did you guard that guy? Or did he guard? Like, he is tough. I wanted them all to remember me, because if they finished a game and they didn't realize and they didn't remember me, then I didn't do my job. Win or lose, they were all going to remember me, and that helped me, and it's what I have now in the future.
So when you come up to a player like that, or you had to guard that center, what advice can you give to a player that's going to, when I'm trying to guard you in the scrimmage, like, what can you give to these players that they might be a little outmatched? What can they do, or what should be their goal?
Make them remember you. Dude, when I started, I was I'm small. I'm still small, right? 6'1" on a good day, you know, and people took me to set, and I wasn't the greatest 2-meter guard, right? And there was clearly 6'8", 6'9", 300-pound centers that are going to crush me, but I wanted them to know that if they took me to set, that I took it as they thought that they had the audacity to think that I was not, that they were superior to me. I was going to make their life a living hell. And the moment that ball turned over, and it did, because I would work harder than I've ever worked in my life. And the moment that ball turned over, I was so quick. I would swim so fast down the pool that we would have an advantage 100% whether we did it, whether we finished or not. That guy would remember me and not take me to set ever again. You can imagine those first times in all games, right? When you drive in against somebody or you post up somebody and it kind of works, you're going to do it again.
Yeah.
But the moment you do it, I mean, even think of basketball on a pickup game, and you post up on someone and they are pushing you and fronting you, and you are just, using so much energy, probably you're not going to do it again. You're going to take the three. And that's it. And that's the reality. So you're always going to be stuck with these adverse situations in a game, but it's the mental part, man. Get into their head immediately. And that's why the beginning of the game is so important. Start the game. Yeah, go ahead, drive. Go ahead, post up. Go ahead. Life is going to be miserable. I am going to counter you. I'm going to move. I'm going to drive. I'm going to press without a foul, and you are going to hate me. And then I'm in their head, and the rest of the game's mine.
So in any sport that we have out there, when you're down by a certain number of points or it's late in the game, you're not winning and you have to come back, and it's so difficult to do that because your team's beat up, their morale's down, they think they're going to lose. I'm sure you've been in this situation a lot, but how do you get yourself and your teammates around you to, let's get back into this game. Let's fight. Let's finish this thing. We have a chance here. What's going through your head, and what are you telling your teammates?
So it's practice. I never, man, I can't say never, but I don't think I left a practice happy. Left a practice where I was just like, cool. I was frustrated every day because we pushed each other. We wanted, every practice was like a game. And when practices are like games, the game is easy. Games were, I hated, like, I knew practices were so important, but I didn't like going to a 5-hour practice, man. No one wants to wake up at 5 a.m. and train for 5 hours. Like, they're just a lie. Go ahead, ask Phelps. Yeah, sure. He'll tell you that's a lie. No one wants to do that, but you're motivated. You want to be the best, and you understand the importance of it. The fun part was, the easy part was games, because I knew when the situations arose, those happened in games, or those happened in practices. Those happen when in a practice we're pushing each other, we're putting pressure. If you miss a 6-on-5, you're going to swim a 200 all out. You are just literally on your teammates, yelling at them, figuring it out. And during these practices, I understand how to motivate each player. Because if I didn't have those practices, I wouldn't understand how to motivate them. So then when it comes down to that important situation and there's a player on my team that needs to be motivated, I can turn to them and I know exactly what to say to motivate them, because I've played for 5 Olympics, and there are players, and I'll give you Peter Hudnut, one of my best friends, one of the reasons we won the silver medal in 2008. I could look at him and tell him the worst words you could ever imagine, and that guy would just change the world. He would get so motivated. But if I can give you another couple names that I won't name. If I said the same things I said to him to those guys, they would go into a bubble and I'd never see them again. So how do you figure out your players, how to motivate your own teammates? It's when you put the pressure in the practice. And that is what the difference of these top successful teams and players, in my opinion.
Yeah, so a little side note on that. So in the squirrels practices, we've had such really good attendance. We end up doing 3 teams to form a scrimmage, so we'll just rotate. And during the, when one team's sitting out, that team is like getting under their skin, like, hey, Charlie, you need to make a better pass. We can beat Clemens down the pool. Why are you not making that pass to me? And it's very game-like. I get out of the pool and I'm frustrated. I'm upset if we just lost by 1 point. It's like Ben Keefe's team. Like, why? What happened? But we don't, we don't go off on each other. We just figure it out and we make sure we, make decisions better. And we do get better. So I can sense your frustration leaving a practice not happy. I know what you mean.
And I think that is like one of the most important things that players need to understand. There's a team in St. Louis that has been in the finals since probably almost every year, close to every year since like the 1970s. And I've asked coaches, and they said it's because they compete at practice, which means they compete then in the game. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, you can hear, I've always been a Jordan fan, but now hearing his and watching his documentary is just, it's hit hard. It's hit to my heart because it's like I've always cared about being a good teammate and being a good player, but deep down I just wanted to win. And I wasn't here to just make sure everyone was happy. I was here to freaking figure out a way for every team that I've been on to win. And some of those teams I was an asshole. But some of those teams I was just the nicest guy, because what mattered is how to motivate every player. Right. And some teams, dude, people just don't need to be yelled at, and they just need to be hugged and talked to and taken to coffee. And some teams, and especially back in the day, they needed to be yelled at and held accountable. And it was just this is what I think. And going forward to people in life, man, being a CEO, being a leader, being a boss, and being successful in our sport. If you want to be successful, you got to figure out how to motivate every person, and every person is not the same, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that's advice that everyone needs to live by. And Tony, I wish we could keep talking. I could talk for all evening for that, but we are running out of time. I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight, and hopefully we all get back in the pool the way we want to get back in and get some water polo going again.
Yes, and I need to get back to the squirrels, man. I need one more 6-on-5. I'm feeling it these days. I've been in my pool shooting hezies. I'm ready.
Anytime.
You are welcome anytime you want to come out.
All right, guys. Take care, man.
All right.
Thanks,
have a
Tony.
good one.
Peace.
And we are wrapping up for tonight. We are off next week, but we have some big plans to continue talking with teams from across the state, from youth to master's program and everything in between. And don't worry, goalies, we've not forgotten about you. We have some big name guests lined up from Olympian Janai Kerr. Will be joining us also. Cage Cat founder Tom Ray, talking about his camps that he does for goalies. If you have topics or shout outs that you'd like to hear, or what's going on with you in your polo world, let us know and we will get that onto our show.
All right, so the Spin Lob is produced and recorded live by Mike Jones and Nick Helwig. It's supported by the Ohio Squirrels. You never get too old to get into the game. Go nuts. And also by Marlins Water Polo. For the love of the game, there's Marlins Water Polo. And our theme music is produced by Jason Shaw at audioand2ticks.com. And see you next time on the Spin Lob.